to open up the possibility that there's something there. And over time you forget things. It wasn't until years later, my mother was telling me about when I was a child, how I would know things I shouldn't know. I could predict things. I could do these odd things that, no one else could do. But we kind of put that down because, it'd be different. So I totally forgotten about these little gifts I had as a kid. And so when the time the Warrens came to town, I think that maybe their conversation awoke in the back of my mind some potentiality or some ability where that ghost, that spirit, picked up on that, I think. And I used to run, as I said, and I'd run 10 miles a day, 12 miles a day, and I'd run on these same paths. So, if something's out there, I could probably bring it home. If something was the Warrens seminar, I could bring that home. If something had perished in the dormitory, I could relate to that. So, but again, all these things are looking back at what might have been. At the time, it was just like a shot in the head, like being sucker punched.
Gosh, I can't even fathom going from happy-go-lucky, nothing happening, to running down the hall trying to find someone. And
Right, right. It's just
so good thing you were a runner.
that's the joke. That's really the joke, Kat. The joke is that, I was the runner and I was
Yes,
known for running fast. And the joke, the sick joke, the dark joke is I became known from running from something, like the ghost, so
right.
it became a positive thing to a negative thing. I mean, I ran marathons. I think I ran 9 marathons the time I went to college, 26-mile marathons, 9 of them, and 13 and all by the time I was 22. So I was a very good runner. And I used to, as a joke, I used to streak down the hallways and chase the girls down there. So it was always fun. And then all of a sudden have a flip on my head and have this thing chasing me. It was kind of like Scooby-Doo, but not funny.
Yeah, right. Nobody to pull the mask off of.
Right, right. There's this another mask. Uh-oh.
Yes. Well, that show actually terrified my oldest daughter because
Oh,
she would be watching it when she would lay down to go to sleep, but she always fell asleep before the unmasking. So for a decade, she was terrified of Scooby Doo
oh
because
yeah.
there were monsters. And she
Yeah.
never got to see that they were human. And so
Right.
I thought about that when I was at Ashmore Estates, and Robin Terry, has the Scooby Doo van.
Right, that's
So
right.
I took a picture of it, brought it home. But, it's not funny. I mean, you were physically attacked. People were affected harshly by what was happening around you. And, I just think that, I know you don't think so, but I think you were very brave.
I,
You
I,
were
I
you
don't
were
know if
dealing.
I thank you for saying that. I don't think I was necessarily brave, but I was lucky, I think, and I think that I, in the end, made some good choices. But if you want to compare what that felt like in a very practical way, it's as if, let's say, somebody told you you have a rare condition medically, and you may not survive the next 4 to 5 months, but they don't know what the cure is yet, and we'll need some more tests. Some people will say, "Oh my gosh, I'm praying for you. I'll be thinking of you," and that makes you feel good, but you're still in that spot.
Right?
Some folks say, "Listen," somebody say, "Listen, I wish I could be there for you, but I'm going to college now. I got to raise my family, and I just they can't give that much of themselves to help because they fall apart themselves." Other folks will just ignore the news and go about their life, just punch the clock day in day out, have their food and watch their TV shows. And then a very select few will reach out to you and say, "Do you need something? Can I come over and help with the laundry? Do you need something for your medication?" And those are the folks that you really treasure, and you don't know who they're going to be at first. They could be relatives, non-relatives, young, old. The amazing thing is when there's a crisis, the real person comes out. Not to say anything about good or better or best or worst, but you find out who you are in crisis only because other time you're putting on best show, your clothes, image, you present a personality to people, your best side. But in crisis, you have no time to show your best side, and then the real you comes out. And I learned a lot about myself and a lot about my friends in those days. I respect the people who ran off because for them that was the smartest choice to live their lives in a healthy way. I respect the people who showed limited interest in the haunting at the time, who just I'm here for you, and then did their thing because they were kind enough to care about what I was going through. And then I really love and will always treasure the people who actually made the physical effort to help, to see what was going on and to get evidence and to make sure I was eating and sleeping and to protect me, basically, not just from the thing but people around me.
Right.
So that I really am amazed by that. But that same thing can happen if somebody gets cancer, they lose their job, etc.
Well, you know what? I agree. And I know that you have knowledge of that, but we are up to our first break, and we're going to be gone for about 3 minutes. So thank you so much, and we will be right back.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.
Hello there and welcome back. You are listening to Fate Radio and I'm Kat Hobson, your host. I'm joined by Chris DiCesare, who experienced an extreme haunting when he was a sophomore in college. I do know that now. And Chris has been sharing some of his experiences as he had to decide, really, didn't you, Chris, who to trust and who to know was there for you. And the people that stepped up were fantastic.
Absolutely. One moment that stands out in my mind is after what I call the primary physical attack, which happened on March 10th of 1985. It's a Sunday afternoon. I had been attacked in the showers of the bathroom of the dorm, and I had these long bleeding scratches down my back from my neck down to my waist. And my friend, John Jeff Unger, had been trying over time to capture both audio and visual evidence of what was going on. There were no cell phones, obviously, at the time. And he said to me, the light is fading outside the window. I'd like to get a picture of the scratches before it gets too dark. This is a great opportunity to do that. And I was just in such a fragile state, and I looked at him and I said, if you're my friend, you won't take that picture. I didn't want a recording of my injury. No one really wants to save, their gallstone, or no one wants to go back to the corner they're mugged or assaulted on, and for me, I just wanted to be near somebody. And he said, well, this is important. You might want to consider this because down the road people want to see what happened. And I said again, I please, if you're my friend, you won't take that picture. He looked at me, looked at the window, looked back, and put the camera down and said, I'm your friend. And that's tremendous. I mean, that's tremendous because people can say certain things, but the act, he had the opportunity to get this amazing shot that today people would love that. I mean, I wish we had it now myself, but at the time, being in the center of this whirlwind, I just need to know that he was there foremost for me as a friend and less so as an investigator. And he was. And that cemented our friendship forever. It's been 33 years and we're the best of friends, like brothers.
Well, and he is very special because that man does care about you, even today.
Yes, absolutely he does. I'm blessed.
I'm glad you know that because not everybody would recognize that.
Well, I think when you go through trauma, to survive the trauma, you have to be able to discern eventually the pros and cons of your scenario, of your situation. And even young children who go through displacement out of their home or who are abused eventually learn to figure out who they can trust and not trust, and they gravitate to those that actually are kind to them. So, I'm just thankful that he had been there, because if he hadn't been there and the way it went down, I'm not sure what would have happened if that ghost had been there and then there's no one to go to, no one to talk to. My best guess is there'd be ridicule. What are you drinking? What are you smoking? And then a lack of acknowledgement of what was happening to me. I probably would have had to have left college and gone back home and told my parents, I can't do this anymore, which would have been a shame because, especially back in the 80s, going to college was an honor.
Yes, it
most
was.
of the time we didn't do that, so it would have been a shame. So again, and even the people, like even my roommate Paul, who eventually did leave the room and go home, he was there for a while and he was very supportive while he could be there, but he made a smart choice. And he could make. If I had lived an hour from the college like he did, I would have gone home weekends too. I didn't have the opportunity. I was 5 hours away. So, good for him. And I really respect him for staying as long as he did in spite of what he was seeing and experiencing. And, eventually he left because he mentioned this 9 years later during an interview that the ghost told him twice, leave Chris alone. And he said to the interviewer, look, I wasn't waiting for time number 3, and he didn't go straight home. He went to a Boy Scout camp and he hid out there to make sure nothing followed him for a couple of days. Then he went home.
Oh,
wow. He left behind most of his things, most of his belongings. He never came back. In fact, the loft that was in the room was his. He never came back for that or anything. So, he was severely impacted by that. And, everybody's different, Kat, and how they handle things. For me, it's been very cathartic to speak about my experience. It took 25 years for me to begin to speak about it.
Yes.
It's been a good thing, but other people they don't want to, and that's fine too. If somebody forced me to do this years ago, it wouldn't have worked out well for me. So everyone works at their own pace, and there's no right or wrong, and I just hope he's okay. Hope he's healthy.
Well, I was telling you during the break that I think that you coming out and sharing this information is so important because I personally know people who are going through what you went through to a degree. Everything is by degrees. But they've been frightened and hurt. And, I just said, I know a man who's been through this. And
right.
He came through it, and you will too. You just have to know that this, you're not the only person this has happened to.
Right. And everyone, Kat, again, goes at their own pace in their own way. So there are some basics, I think, and you probably agree with this. In any crisis, you want to make sure you take care of yourself as best you can. That means make sure you eat, make sure you sleep at night, make sure you try to have some kind of safety in your environment. There's someone you can talk to. So maybe it takes someone 2 weeks or 6 months or 2 years, but the most important thing is that they move forward at the pace they need to. Some folks go into a coma and they're there for 2 weeks, or they're there for 6 years. And so you don't give up, you keep moving forward, and you hope that, eventually that light becomes brighter and brighter and you find yourself outside the darkness.
I like that. Outside the darkness. That's a great phrase.
Thanks.